This is 6035 Media.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the League of Women Voters of the Pikes Peak Region District 3 Candidate Forum. We appreciate you being here today. My name is Shelley Roars. I'm the spokesperson for the League of Women Voters. Really quickly, I'm going to introduce Zach from UCCS, and he's going to say a few, tell us about this awesome space we're in real quick.
My name is Zach Roger. I'm director of UCCS. I'm an occasional custodian. We opened this space about 4.5 years ago. We're just trying to blend ourselves more into downtown communities. We want to be seen not just as the university on the hill of parking, but also the University of Downtown. This is a completely free space for anybody's use, so anybody can use this for anything they ever want. 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to late as I can pay Messi to stay here. So you are so you're on you have either you're on board, maybe you're something personally professional, whatever it may be. We love what you hear. We have classes, conferences, receptions, art shows, things of this nature. We have baby shower live. Which brings me to my only real rule, which is no glitter black.
Can I have beer in mind? Can we have beer in mind here? Membership meet and greet next month, Sandra. Right here. That's exactly. Yes, sir.
You can make reservations right there. Always free. If you have questions, find me. Contact me as well.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Messi. Thank you for having us. We appreciate you so much. All right. So as others join us in the room and also live stream on YouTube, we appreciate you being here. Again, I am Shelley Roars with the League of Women Voters. I am one of your moderators. I'm hoping I've got one more. She may be stuck in traffic. So, and that's Jackie. We are both in. When we asked for the forms for voter service, I wanted to make sure we had that. So, I appreciate you candidates being here today. We have Mr. Scott Hiller and Ms. Michelle Tallarico, both of your candidates for District 3 City Council on your ballot. I don't see any elected officials in attendance, right? I know Julie's not here tonight, so I'm skipping that part of my agenda. Your timekeeper this evening, League Member Terry Weber in your front row. She'll give you your cues. Question takers, again, most of your questions from the League come from audience members. That's why candidates don't get our questions in advance. We are very different from a lot of the forums that you see out there. So we do put you on the hot seat, but since there are only 2 of you, it's a little bit moderated for the mayor and the at-large. So questions are Denny in the back. If you have any, make sure you get a card. I've already gotten a few. Denny will get you a card as well. And then Molly as well in the back. She is also one of our question takers. Come on over, Miss Jackie. Here's your other moderator, also another voter in your district. So monitoring YouTube behind us is Sita in the back, our administrative assistant. So she's going to be taking those questions. So again, thank you for joining us virtually as well. Audio and video needs are Dave Gardner, Studio 809 podcast in the back there. Thank you, Dave. Co-sponsors for these forums are Action 22, Black and Latino Leadership Coalition, Citizens Project, Colorado Latinos Vote, KRCC, Latina Equity Foundation, which is Miss Jackie today, NAACP, and 6035 Media. So thank you to our co-sponsors. We appreciate all of you for helping us make this happen. What is the League? The League is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization dedicated to two things: empowering voters and defending democracy. That's what we're here for. We are not some woke organization. I've been told that in the last one. If you consider the organization that fought to get women the right to vote 100 years ago, and then again the Voting Rights Act of 1965, if you consider that a woke organization, I'm not sure we're on the same page. But I do consider us a very liberal organization who does fight for certain things that are sometimes not popular at the time. I'm just going to say that. So if you ever have any questions about the League, we are a membership organization, not just women either, by the way. All volunteers except for our one administrative assistant that we desperately need all the time. And student membership is free, by the way. If you're a student, right, we have free student memberships. Sandra Collins, where are you? If you see Sandra Collins, if you have any questions, we sometimes take a stance on certain issues, like you will hear us talk about TOPS. If you have not seen us, we are a supporter of TOPS as the League. So those certain things, we don't take these things lightly. We do a lot of research. Sometimes arduous, sometimes it's very frustrating for people like me who I need something a little quicker, and it sometimes takes the League many years to decide things. But that's good. That's why we've been around for a very long time. So that's about the League. If you have any questions or ever want a conversation about that, please let me know. Will remain on our lwvppr.org page and 6035 Media YouTube, our YouTube channel specifically, and also available on two podcasts. All of our candidates interviewed on our podcast, Making Democracy Work and 6035 Vote, and you can find links on our website. So vote 411. If you have questions that you are not getting answered via this forum or anywhere else, vote411.org is the League's portal. It's a national portal, but it is done on a local basis. So these candidates, hopefully, I'm pretty sure, have filled out their surveys. You can go and get questions, their answers to those questions, and anything else that you want on vote411.org that is now live. As you well know, you should have had your ballot already in the mail. If you don't, let's talk about that. Forum format tonight. You have a 2-minute introduction for each candidate. Mr. Hiller will go first. We're going to start in alphabetical order. The candidates have agreed to abide by the rules. They have an agreement. Again, we are a forum format. This is not a debate. We will not be going back and forth. So candidate introductions are 2 minutes. Candidate answers can be anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Again, you don't have to take the whole full 2 minutes. If you're done, you're done. That's okay with us. And each moderator will decide and give you a number based on what our questions are up here. I'll tell you that our timekeeper knows as well. Audience members, please don't shout out during the forum. We're pretty quiet during the actual forum itself, and we will save our applause till the end. If you have any questions, make sure you submit to the League volunteers. Housekeeping items, make sure your phones are silenced, as mine is not. And then the restrooms. It is a maze to get to the restrooms around here. So if you need some assistance, we're going to send you out that back door behind us, and we're going to talk to Mr. Massey, and he will show you the way. All right? So just ask for him. But other than that, I think we're going to start with, again, I've already introduced myself, so Jackie's going to introduce herself, and then we're going to start with candidates.
Hi, I'm Jackie Jaramillo. I'm the president of the Latina Equity Foundation. It's a new nonprofit in Colorado Springs. But I'm a lifelong resident. I was born in Colorado Springs in 1951 at St. Francis Hospital. And I went to school here. I even went to Colorado College here. So I've lived here most of my life. I have worked all over the world. I did relief work and a secondary responder to famine and disaster relief. So I've worked with NGOs all over the country. And I love Colorado Springs. I love my home, and I've seen a lot of development over the years, and I've witnessed a lot of good governance and a lot of bad governance. So I have a very vested interest because me and my 6 children, my husband, my 6 children, and 3 grandchildren all live in Colorado Springs, and so I want it to continue to be a great place to live.
All right, so we're going to start with candidate introductions. 2 minutes from Mr. Killer. You're going to start first, please.
Thank you very much to UCCS, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. How about this? And thank you for your time and listening. My name is Scott Hiller. I'm running for City Council District 3. I grew up in a lower middle class neighborhood in Sharpstown. That's in Houston, Texas. My neighborhood was pretty rough growing up, and my parents sacrificed for my sister and I, and they were able to send us to a private school, and we were very fortunate in that sense. And after Texas, I was able to attend St. Louis University. Again, thankful to those charities and those organizations that allowed me that opportunity. And there in Missouri, I studied science, math, and business, and I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Geophysics. Most importantly, it was in St. Louis I met my wife, Kelly. She and I have been married for 17 years, and I'm also an juggler. So by 2017, I was in a position where I could live anywhere in the world that I wanted to because of my industry, and my wife and I chose on purpose Colorado Springs. It's that special of a place. And currently, I'm the chief of geoscience for a national coastal engineering firm. We specialize in very large offshore infrastructure like wind turbines. So a few things about my credentials: direct experience in a Water Horizon oil spill, and I've been deployed by the Army Corps of Engineers for emergency management after hurricanes. My overall pitch to you is that I'm a scientist. I look at the world around me, and I make decisions based on that approach. Looking at what obstacles that Colorado Springs has for the future, whether it be wildfires or water allocation, I will bring a scientific approach to that I see lacking. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try to do this same thing that Scott did. My name is Rico, and I am running for City Council District 3. I am a small business person who has lived and worked in Colorado Springs for over 40 years. I'm a family person, a partner, a mother, and a grandmother. I have served our community as an advocate for many nonprofit organizations, as a mentor, as a leader, and as importantly, a doer. I love Colorado Springs, and I am dedicated to helping our community grow responsibly while protecting our valuable resources. My goal is to create and sustain a community that I would be proud to give my grandson. By focusing on affordability and working with stakeholders, I will work to create attainable and sustainable housing solutions, less regulation, and more incentives, as well by making good decisions on our utilities to ensure affordability for all of our citizens. Public safety is a big issue. We will work on a detailed wildfire mitigation plan, as well as the addition of more firefighters. Our crime rate is too high. Recruiting, retaining, and supporting law enforcement is key. We're cultivating a better culture between the public and our law enforcement. I am a champion for all small businesses. I have owned a successful catering company for 34 years, starting with $300. We now employ over 100 employees. We have given back in dollars, food donations, and services to hundreds of nonprofits. In talking to the community, it is obvious that the homeless issue is a problem that we deal with daily. As difficult as this issue is, I am resolved to do the research and solutions that will ease the problem for our community. I am a bridge builder and encourage community factions to find solutions by finding common ground. I will listen and learn and make decisions on facts and what is right for our community. I am the right choice for District 3, and I thank you for your vote.
Thank you, Ms. Tallarico. First question, Jackie, you're up for first person who gets it is going to be Ms. Taylor.
Okay, Ms. Tallarico, I have a question for you. One of the things that my organization is very concerned about is the lack of diversity on boards and commissions in Colorado Springs. As a city councilwoman, what would you do to ensure that we have people have a diverse voice on all of those boards and commissions?
I'm sorry, how long? 1 minute or 2?
1 minute.
Okay, thank you. What I would say to answer that question is that is something that keeps me up at night. I think it's really extremely unfortunate that we have so many boards and commissions in this community, and so few of them are represented by the Latino and Black and Asian communities. And also, they're also underrepresented in terms of socioeconomic issues. I find it is not okay with me, I will rephrase that because of the time that it takes to serve on these commissions, sometimes these people are working 5 hours at a time. It is just absolutely prohibitive for them to take that time off of work. Opportunities, you only know if you know, and I would work to figure out a way that that's not how that's done any longer.
Same question. Mr. Hiller. Same question.
Thank you for that. So in any committee, when you have members of that committee, the whole idea is that you don't want them all to be the same person. And so I think that diversity, racial diversity, economic diversity, gender diversity, all of those things are extremely important to coming to the right decisions and to coming to really good governance and things that benefit the whole community. No matter what it is, if you have a committee made up of very similar thoughts, very similar experiences, very similar anything, you'll always look at things in the same perspective and generally come to the same conclusions. So actively strive to ensure that any committee that I have any authority over or any input on focuses on getting a wide diversity of thought. And I think that by focusing on diversity of thought, you naturally get diversity of all of those other elements. I don't think we need to focus directly on, say, diversity of race. We simply say, I need diversity of thought. put together teams of people who are very, very different. And I mean that international teams where we have to come together, work together, and live together offshore on vessels. So unlike in Colorado Springs, you can't just walk away. You know, you're offshore with somebody for a few months. And I think one of my natural abilities, and certainly something that I've gotten experience with, is keeping that cohesion, keeping that morale. Because as she said, with this position, what the voters expect is that we work together. You have to find a way, and that is what you've been tasked to do. So that's just naturally part of the job. You're sent there to work with 8 other people to get things done. It doesn't matter who they are, their voters sent them there. So I will only view it that way, that as long as they're on the city council, that's who I have to work with to get things done.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, next question. We're going to start this time with Mrs. Tel.
No, Mr. Hiller.
Oh, Mr. Hillary. How would you manage your work, responsibilities, and serve on city council? 1 minute.
Thank you for that. Yes, I do have a full-time job. I am fortunate enough that that job affords me a lot of flexibility. And so I think it's important that we have different people on the city council, as I've said before, and that includes people who are working, people who know in the now what it is to work and live in Colorado Springs. If the city council is only filled with people who don't need to do that for various reasons, either they've retired, independently wealthy, whatever that is, that's perfectly fine. Again, that's only one perception of thought, one type of thought. So I think it's important to have people who work jobs and are trying to balance those things. And it also keeps your government managed by citizens, real citizens who, you know, live and work and breathe right here in this city and are experiencing the same things that you are, including a hectic schedule. So thank you.
I am incredibly lucky because although I own my own business, we have an incredible management team and leadership team right now that is poised to take over and has started to take over. I also am in a very unique situation that my son has recently expressed interest in the business, which is both exciting and scary, if I'm being honest. I do not need to make the $6,500 a year. And thank goodness, because if I did, there would just be no way that I could do this job. So I feel incredibly fortunate that I have a partner. I think that I would give this job, I know that it will be at minimum a 30 to 50 hour a week job, and that is if you're barely doing it well, I believe. And so it is my job, it will be my job if I am elected your city councilor to give this position all of the time that it needs so that I may be effective in working with those other people on the dais, and that I am giving it the proper care and duty of care that it deserves.
Thank you.
All right, so I believe, Ms. Tallarico, you're first on mine. So every time I come up on my question, Ms. Tallarico and then Mr. Hiller. So when we're trying, right? Okay, so we're all on the same page here. Okay, so we're going to give you 2 minutes on this one, another audience question. What does affordable housing mean to you, and what alternative housing options would you consider? So 2 minutes, please.
Affordable housing is an incredibly complex, you've heard many people say that, so that's nothing new, incredibly complex item to discuss. I think depending upon what your socioeconomic situation is, you would define that differently. I think it depends on what your role is in the city and what role you have in the job that you have. Very, very quick personal story. My son and his wife just tried to buy a home about 3 months ago. We knew that it would not be a possibility for them, but we let them go down that road because they needed to. They need to experience what that's like. And they realized quite quickly that they're not at all in a situation. Sam has a good job. He doesn't have a great job. It is impossible for most of the people that I know in this community, including people who are retired. I have some retired friends who, but for the goodness of God, because they purchased a home 35 years ago and they've been able to retire, they don't have the same issues that I do. I think that there are multiple ways for us to discuss and gather together a lot of the private and public partnerships and partner agencies that are so brilliantly doing a job in this space. One of my friends is Beth Ralsted. She sits in the back row. I think that this is a problem that we need to continue as a city to bring all stakeholders to the table. It's not a one size fits all answer. I think it's a little bit of a lot of things. I personally am a fan of infill. I believe that we should be building up our infrastructure. It's already built, and I will shut up. I don't want that dirty look. You?
Absolutely not.
All right,
Um,
okay.
Could you repeat that question?
Oh, repeat the question, okay. Where is the question? It was your question, right?
Oh, was it me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I wasn't paying
your
attention. Sorry. What does affordable housing mean to you, and what alternative housing options would you consider? 2 minutes.
Wonderful, thank you. So affordable housing actually is defined by our government, and I'm not sure how good that is, but it's defined as any housing that costs a person less than 30% of their gross income to afford. So that means that for every person in this room, every person in the city, affordable housing is literally different. And that means that for any of those that we're trying to help, we're not really identifying the problem in a very specific way. Because if you say, what is affordable housing? The people in the Broadmoor will give you honest, real answers that are very different than those who live on Mill Street. And both of them are correct. They are affordable housing. We also have this concept of attainable housing that our city brings in, and supportive housing. So I think that what we need is specificity. I agree with Michelle. The one size fits all approach is probably not the way to go. And that's also a geographic constraint. Infill, just in general, is no issue. On the west side, you have a vacant lot next to a single family house. We should add another house there. But when there's more things to consider on the west side, such as wildfires, traffic, size of streets, whether you can or can't escape when the next fire is coming down, we have to be smart about that infill. Of course, people want to live here. I want to live here. Many people want to live here. But when public safety becomes an issue, we really have to focus on that first. It's not that we don't want things to happen. It's that we don't want people to get hurt in our zeal for providing things to other people. So while I agree with the approach in general, one thing that I would suggest is that we may be doing this a little too quickly. This is a place that's complicated. We live on the Front Range. We live with wildlife, wildfires, and water allocation issues. So the faster we do things, the more vulnerable we are. The slower, measured, and more purposeful that we do things, the better it will be for all of us, including those who need affordable housing. Thank you.
Okay, next question. This will start with Mr. Hiller, and then go on to Ms. Tallarico. The question is, if you could name 3 issues for District 3, what would those 3 issues be? And you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. So for District 3, number 1, I would say, is public safety, and specifically in regard to wildfires. So from the Waldo Canyon fire and some of the other national fires, we've seen that preparedness and practicing for that preparedness is a serious issue, and I would suggest is lacking in this town. We do have an app. If you go onto that app and you ask, where's my zone? It'll tell you you're in this zone, and it tells you whether or not to evacuate. But that's really all it tells you, is that you should go. And so if all of us who are in Skyway, or all of us in Old Colorado City, or Pleasant Valley, if all of you get that alert at the same time and no one knows where to go, only that you should go, it will cause chaos and problems. And those things can be prevented. They can be prevented with planning and, purposeful emergency response. So that's number one. I would suggest that we focus quite a bit on that for District 3. Number two, public safety. After the sit-lie ordinance, many people made their way into the west side, certainly into my neighborhood, where we have people camping in others' backyards. We have people defecating into our waterways or literally into elementary school parking lots. You just speak to the Ruth Washburn School about any of that, and they'll tell you what's going on. So the people in District 3 need to feel safe to use the trails, to walk the streets, to walk our alleys. We're designed in a beautiful grid pattern that allows us to be walkable, bikeable, scootable as much as we want, but it's difficult to do that when someone is literally living in the middle of the alley. So we need to bring in more of the hot team, more police presence, and make sure that everyone's feeling safe. And then number three that kind of piggybacks onto that is the parks and open space. I would suggest that we need to find a way to get strawberry fields back. We need to find a way to improve our open spaces and keep our interconnecting trails open and usable for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would agree with Scott on this. I may just say it a little bit different. I think that wildfire mitigation, as it relates to public safety, is probably number one. I think that it's something that we will, sadly but truly in our lifetime, be forced to deal with again. And I don't know that we are doing all that we can. And I think that we need to create incentives or even just create the dialogue for more incentives, because there already are incentives there, to make certain that we're doing all that we can as homeowners and make certain that we're educating the people of the West Side. I would then quickly head into the homeless issue. As I was walking through Old Colorado City the other day, I was made keenly and abruptly and sadly aware by a friend who had a man defecate on her storefront and drive away traffic, literally from the front door, as you can imagine. And she said it took 8 hours for a police officer to respond. And actually, she was glad that even happened in 8 hours. That's not okay. I can't pretend to have all the answers. I don't think I'll get in day one and I'll be able to fix all of those problems. But I think that it's really important that we do all that we can for people to feel safe and secure in shopping. And we owe that to our shopkeepers that are paying good taxes. Last but not least, I agree absolutely. We have to do more. I also am a huge fan. You didn't ask about tops, but I will talk about it for a second. I am a huge proponent of tops. I am one of those people that believes we should be buying as many trails and open spaces as we possibly can. And if that includes strawberry fields being opened back up again, let's continue to look at that again.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to do a series of yes or no questions. So we're not going to do time, but I'm going to ask 4 of them, and then we're going to go to you. So yes, these are yes or no, pretty simple. No elaboration, please. Sorry, I'm pretty direct, as most of my admin team will know. All right, since the private sector is unwilling or unable to build affordable housing, would you support the city floating a $1 billion bond and use eminent domain to build affordable housing? Yes or no, Mr. Hiller? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Tallarico, you're first on mine, right? Yeah, Ms. Tallarico, yes or no?
Do I support the city using a $1 million bond?
Would you support the city floating a $1 billion bond and use eminent domain to build affordable housing? Yes or no?
I am going to say no.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Mr. Hiller?
No.
Thank you. Yes or no again? Colorado Springs seems to have trouble getting its public transportation working. Do you support hiring an outside firm to help Mountain Metro improve and expand its service? Yes or no on that?
Yes, 100%.
Mr. Hiller?
Yes.
Are you willing to support the expansion financially? Also, yes or no? Because there's money tied to it.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hiller?
Maybe.
Actually, we had a maybe the other night. I'm going to have to ask you for a yes or no, because The other candidates forced me to make sure I got a yes or no out of you. So
Fair enough.
yes
No.
or no? Thank you very much. Also, yes or no? Do you support a dedicated revenue stream for parks and recreation, excluding TOPS, that will take care of all maintenance and upkeep? Ms. Tallarico.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hiller.
Yes.
Thank you. Last one for me, yes or no? Are you willing to put a moratorium on future growth for the next 10 years in order to build up the needed water supplies for existing households and businesses? Yes or no, Ms. Tallarico?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Hiller.
No.
Thank you very much.
Wow. Okay, you went through those really fast. Okay, so Mr. Hiller, we are going to start with you, and this is going to be a 1-minute response. The question is regarding historic preservation. What have you done, and what will you plan to do in support of neighborhoods and preserving historic nature?
Thank you for that. So what have I done? I was recently I was one of the leading voices in trying to get a development stopped in our old Colorado City neighborhood. Unfortunately, we were not able to get him to stop from tearing down the old Christmas tree farm on Uinta because he owns the property. But we've actively lobbied the city. We've been trying to get them not to do it, but these guys just seem hell-bent on ripping down historic homes and building apartments. So the historic assets of this city need to be respected and preserved. That doesn't mean that you just get carte blanche because my home is historic, that nothing can happen. But we have to give some deference to this. What's valuable in this city is our sense of place at the base of Pikes Peak and our history. Ignoring or destroying either one of those things is only shooting ourselves in the foot. It will only bring bad things. Thank you.
Ms. Tallarico,
Would you mind repeating that question?
I will repeat it. It's regarding historic preservation. What have you done, and what will you plan to do to support of neighborhoods and preserving historic nature?
What have I done? I have listened to learn about those issues. What will I do? It is my understanding through meeting with several groups, including the OCC, not Olympic, OCC neighborhoods in the Mill Street neighborhood, which I didn't realize. Scott and I got a great education a couple weeks ago about how old that neighborhood was. I think it is imperative that we, as community members now, I think we will be judged in a good way if we really add credence to these neighborhoods. And I think it's absolutely crucial that we do all that we can to support the amazing neighborhood organizations that are rewriting their plans, which there are many that have outdated plans. And I would be excited to be a part of a commission that would be supporting those plans, because I think that historic preservation is very important.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Tallarico, I think you're first, right, on my questions. So both candidates, both of you have mentioned increased response to homelessness needs, more police office enforcement. What other ideas do you have to address homelessness? That basically is, what other ideas do you have? I'm sorry. Thank you. 1 minute.
1 minute.
1 minute.
I believe that it is not acceptable that we as a community send our men and women into harm's way to go break up a homeless camp without the proper mental illness and substance abuse knowledge that they need. So what I would do is I would work to not only just increase the number of the HOT team and the HOP team. So HOT is with the police, HOP is with the fire department. But I would try to come up with some legislation around the fact that we need to be training our officers with more information. I just find it ridiculous that we're putting them in this position where they're having to break up a meth lab and they have never been trained to do so. So that's what I would say.
Mr. Hiller, same question.
Great, thank you. So the homelessness issue is really doing a disservice by making it sound so simple. There's a lot of groups that are experiencing homelessness, and one of those groups is those who are experiencing homelessness and addiction or mental health issues. And so what's missing in Colorado Springs and in many cities around the country is a step. There needs to be a step somewhere between the camps and the housing that's supportive for those who are unable to care for themselves, even when presented with the opportunity. So when you go into an area and you say, can this person accept the services that we're providing? Many of them, the answer is yes. They go on to the services, into the shelters and things like that, and it works. For the group of people that cannot identify even that they are being helped, we need another step in there: addiction treatment, mental health treatment. There is federal and state money. I've spoken to some people with UCCS about that, and we're able to, UC Health, and we're able to bring that in. We just haven't attempted it yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hiller.
Okay, next question. This is going to start with Mr. Hiller. We have 1 minute for this answer. How do you plan to involve residents in your decision-making?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, my office, so to speak, one of my promises that I will have to be transparent. That bothers me immensely in government when I don't understand why people are voting the way they're doing or why they believe what they believe. So I think it's very important, number one, for me to always explain to the constituents why I vote a certain way and why I believe a certain thing. And we may not always agree, but you'll at least know where I stand and why I stand that way. And further to that, I don't have all the answers, and I certainly don't know everything. I would never pretend to say as much, but we have to listen to everyone. That diversity of thought, diversity of experience is extremely important. So an open door policy, I think, is really the best way and only way to go if you want to be sincere in government.
Thank you.
And I would agree with my opponent. I think an open door policy is the absolute best. What I think that I would do that is maybe not different than what Scott would do, but it would be something that I'm looking forward to. I am so excited to walk the neighborhoods of all of the areas of my district. It is incredibly complicated. I don't know if any of you have taken the step of looking at how convoluted, in a good strange way, our district is, right? It goes all the way down to Hillside Community Center, Memorial Park. It juts up to Platt, goes up to Fillmore, goes all the way down to Cheyenne Mountain State Park, and everything in between, in OCC and downtown. So I want to, as much as it may be awkward and as much as I may not feel comfortable, I want to go and visit with all of those people. Will I have answers for everyone? I won't, but I want to listen and I want to try to help, because you know what? Their stop sign is just as important as the person in the Broadmoor stop sign.
Thank you.
Thank you. 1 minute for this one. Ms. Tellerico, first, if you got $1 million to spend in any way for the city, what would you do with it?
If I got $1 million to spend in any way in the city, I would probably give $500,000 of it to my friend Beth Ralstad so that she could continue the work. Seriously, I would. And then I would probably put the other $500,000 towards drug interdiction studies and what we can do to create more understanding about drug addiction. It is not an easy issue. We all know someone, I believe, that has suffered horrendous outcomes in the last several years due to fentanyl deaths and due to other situations. And so I would want all of that money to go to that study. And I would look for the best way to spend it.
Mr. Hiller, same question.
Great, thank you. So I look at that a little bit differently, and I'll just maybe a little shocking of perspective, but $1 million, even compared to the size of our budget, that's not very much money. And so what I would suggest is with $1 million, I would find a private partner to match that amount, and I would purchase strawberry fields back from the Broadmoor. It's not that these other things are even, that are should be more important or priorities should be in certain places. I just don't feel that that is enough money to make an impact in a lot of cases. The police need more money, but they need many, many millions of dollars, not a million. Affordable housing, charities, people who are working with those in the street need many, many millions of dollars. So to the question directly, if I received $1 million, I would find a partner and purchase back Strawberry Fields. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question. This one is going to be for 2 minutes, starting with Mr. Hiller. It says, one of the contentious issues that you'll be voting on this is how to balance the demands for more water and an ever-increasing infrastructure with preserving the quality of life for the people who have lived here for decades. How would you strive to balance that?
Great. Thank you very much. At a high level, I want to say that something I've noticed in the Springs is that there seems to be a focus on the citizens who do not live here yet. And I think that's been a little bit problematic, that the focus of the council, the focus on the government is on the opinions of people who are not here and may or may not ever show up. We can't be certain of it. So the one thing I would say is that I will always put the concerns and the rights of the citizens who are here now above those who are not here now. In terms of water specifically, we have to study water. We don't know exactly what's going on. So as I sit here, I can't tell you if we have enough, if we have too much, or if we're already in crisis. I can't tell you that. And that's the concerning part. So we have to figure out what we've got. If we have enough water and the supply is not an issue, then growth is not an issue. If supply is an issue, then we need to focus on that first. We don't want to be irresponsible and bring people into the city and create all of these new water spigots and taps to use a resource that we don't have to allocate. So I would suggest that before we start measuring the drapes on all these new fancy subdivisions that we're going to add to the city and all of this new densification, we need to understand how much water we've got, how we can use it responsibly, and then make plans to do so. But let's not put the cart before the horse. Water first, then development. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tallarico.
And I agree that the water is our number one issue. I think we've known for a really long time that it's going to be so. I would be a fan of. It's difficult for me when I'm asked the question, which you didn't ask, but I'll say it. How do I feel about the 128% water ordinance? What's difficult for me is that I have to assume that the city council that was present when that was presented did the best that they could with the information that they had. It was a 5-4 vote. So I have to assume that they had some really serious, hard conversations about that. Is it enough? Was there enough science behind it? Probably my friend Scott knows a little bit more about that than I do. I would venture to say that we need to know more about the water. We need to know more about our watersheds. We need to know more about who owns all of the water. There are many, many aspects to water in not just this city, in this section of the country. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or a geoscientist to drive down to Lake Powell and realize that we are in a world of hurt when it comes to water issues. So I am really a fan of hopefully a co-counselor of mine, Nancy Henjum, when she stood up at that meeting and said, I will support this, but I am an advocate of us studying exactly what needs to happen with the water ordinances. So I don't know if I agree with you, Scott, that we worry about people that aren't moving here. I guess I hear what you're saying. I know that it's been a concern of yours that we work too hard to bring people to Colorado Springs, and you don't believe that should be an issue. I think that we are only going to grow, and that it would be not sane for us to not consider those amounts of growth as the future approaches.
Thank you.
So you answered second, right, on that one?
I believe I did.
Okay.
Yes, you did.
So in your candidate agreement, and I'm going to give you each 30 seconds. So at one point you responded to Scott and deferred to him and was opposite of him. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds, Scott, if you would like to. We don't normally do this, but she did specifically mention you in one aspect right there in the forum. Again, it's in your candidate agreement if this is to happen, but I'm going to give you 30 seconds if you want to respond to that. And then you also, Ms. Tallarico, depending upon what he says, will have a 30-second rebuttal. But that's just because she responded to that to you directly, okay? So 30 seconds to respond, please.
Sure. And I'll just clarify that Colorado Springs is naturally extremely attractive. I mean, people want to live here. The growth is organic. The growth will occur. And I'm not suggesting in any way that we stop the growth, simply that the growth should be smart and guided by things that we know. So if we're uncertain about water, maybe we have plenty. Maybe 3 million more people can move here and it's totally fine. The issue is that we don't know. And that's dangerous. So I'm not anti-growth, just pro-studying first.
Thank you. And Ms. Tallarico, 30 seconds. Do you need to respond? It's up to you.
I don't believe so.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Perfect. All right. I have a yes or no. It's my turn, right? Okay. Yes or no question. Would you support a syringe access program in the city? Ms. Tallarico, yes or no?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Hiller, yes or no?
No.
Thank you very much. You're up.
Next question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. For this question, you have 2 minutes to respond, and we're going to start with Mr. Hiller. What do you think is the root cause of escalating crime in our city, and how can you help change that as an elected official? Two.
I think the root cause of crime in our city, I'm going to have to say that I don't know. And I'm going to say that statement has done me a lot of service in my life, and I'm going to stick with that right now. I don't know the root cause. I can think of a few causes. That is lack of opportunity here, some lack of public support for certain things, lack of addiction training, treatment and training for the police. But a lot of it is a lack of opportunity. I mean, people typically commit crimes when either one of their needs is not being fulfilled or they have some lack of direction. And so I think that that's something that needs to be not deferred, but understood very much by the police, the detectives, those who are in there getting to the root causes of why it's happening. And then we can focus on those. I don't have a direct answer to that. And I would have to study that a lot more and certainly talk to the experts about that. But it's more than likely related to one of those things that I had mentioned. And all of those can be championed by government. So whether our number one issue is lack of opportunity or it's that there's just too much opportunity for drug dealers and things like that, we focus on wherever our assets will be, the usefulness of our assets will be used by the police. I'm just not entirely sure that focusing on one item is the way to go. So it's guaranteed that it's going to be a multifaceted problem, not a single issue. Yeah,
Thank you.
And I think that I look at that question maybe a little bit holistically. It is my perspective that we have an issue in the country, in the world, in the state, in the city with crime. Does that mean that we should accept it and move on? No, we've always got to be trying to do all that we can to solve that. Some people would point to the fact that we have decriminalized some juvenile crimes, and we have reduced the number of juvenile beds in our facilities. While that may be true, I am not a policeman and I'm not an expert in the sheriff's department, but I think that we, post-COVID and during COVID, we are a society that really needs some coming back together, and coming back together with supporting our police. And so what I would do, and I apologize, I think this was part of your question, what I would do as a candidate is do all that I could to educate myself on the parts of our country. It's too much for me to think about the world as much as I want to, but the parts of our country that are doing a better job with crime, and try to bring some of those solutions to this community community so that we can hope to affect change.
Thank you very much.
All right, Ms. Tallarico, I think you're first to answer on my question. And I think our last questions are coming up at 7:15, so we're still good, right? Okay. Are you familiar with the Colorado Springs Creek Plan for Monument Creek? So the question is yes or no on that. And if so, what are your opinions of it?
Yes, I am familiar. My opinions are that I don't know that there is enough. I don't know that there is enough being done to affect a change that the population will see. And my concern is that it's difficult for us to get buy-in as any community unless our public can see direct change and unless that public feels comfortable going to those areas. So that would be my answer.
Thank you. And Mr. Hiller, same question.
I am not familiar with the Creek Plan.
Thank you.
So-
Appreciate that.
No question.
Oh, son of a gun. There we go. If you are not elected to represent District 3.
Okay, 30 seconds for this. If you're not elected, starting with Mr. Hiller and then Mr. Tallarico. If you're not elected to represent District 3, what do you plan to do to continue your desire to lead in the city?
Thank you for that. I think just staying engaged is it. I mean, the good news for District 3 is that if you don't choose me, you'll be choosing Michelle, and so I think honestly, District 3 is probably going to be just fine. And so I will stay engaged. I'll stay as much as I can. Michelle and I know each other pretty well, so I'll stay engaged with her to be directly involved with city council as I can. But that's really all you can do as a citizen. Just stay engaged. Thanks.
Thank you.
And my answer would be similar. I would plan on going back into some of the board work that I have pulled out of begrudgingly, and really making an effort in that way. I also would be really, really fascinated with becoming a part of a board or a commission that the city is a part of. I agree with Mr. Hiller that the best thing that you can do is to stay engaged, and I would look forward to that opportunity. And I agree that District 3 is in a good position because there's two good people representing.
Very good. Okay, so we're going to give you 1 minute for this one. Voter apathy is at an all-time high. How do you as a candidate restore voter trust vis-a-vis like removing favoritism and cronyism from the process? And I'll give you a couple of examples. A specific one mayoral candidate was given access to fire station to do a video versus another candidate being denied. And in the League of Women Voters access with regards to the Hillside Community Center for our mayoral candidate forum, it was a back and forth. We were given access, then not. So how do you remove favoritism and cronyism from the process? 1 minute, please. Ms. Tallarico, I believe you're first on my questions. Yes, ma'am.
That is a really loaded question. And I think it's absolutely not right to treat one candidate in one way and to treat another candidate in another way. I think that there needs to be some fairness in the way that is handled. I don't know enough about the specifics of what happened. I very much have read about it. I've heard all about it. I believe that it happened. What would I do? I would listen to people, and my biggest goal besides winning the seat is to get my butt out there and get people voting. I believe that we can't begin to impact or make a change unless we get more people voting. And so that would be my number one plan.
Thank you. Mr. Hiller.
Great. Thank you. I think the biggest thing that we can do is lead by example. And what we can do is be sincere and honest with the voters and let them know what they need to know. People don't vote because they think it doesn't matter, that whether or not I cast a ballot, it's just going to be this guy or this guy. And what I can say is that as a bit of an outsider, I don't have any local business interests. I don't really have anyone that I would say I'm beholden to for any reason whatsoever. And so, as somebody who doesn't mind whether one group or another is lobbying me or talking with me, I can say that I won't give any preference to any group over another. I'll be transparent and I'll be outward and forward with the voters. I think with that kind of experience, the voters will be more inclined to vote next time to see that it does matter. We can get people in who will be honest and sincere. Even if we don't agree with everything they say, I can trust that you will do things in a sincere way and not because of any political zeal. Thank you.
Thank you. If you submitted a question regarding a specific vote on Amphitheater 2424, Garden of the Gods, and Broadmoor, if you would come up and get your question, I need some clarification on this one, please. And then you're up.
Okay, so the next question, 30 seconds, starting with Mr. Hiller. Are you in favor of open or closed meetings when dealing with ethical violations of city council members?
I would have to say open. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and with very few exceptions, things in government should be accessible to everyone. We are all stakeholders in this, every single one of us. There's no reason that things should be kept from the public, and there should be a very high burden to get past if you're suggesting that the public doesn't need to know something. I would always defer to open door and sunlight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tallarico?
I would agree wholeheartedly. I think that all of those things should be very much open door. I would have a very big issue with there being any ethical issue that we would need to close the door on. That to me just does not, those two things don't even make sense.
Thank you.
Quick. All right. Got just a few more minutes. We'll try to wrap up with your questions. This is a yes or no question, so pretty easy one for you. And then I'm going to do a 20 words or less question, so pretty fast, okay? So it shouldn't be even 30 seconds, 20 words or less. I know, right? This is awesome. I love it. Putting you candidates on the hot seat. It's awesome. All right. Number one, yes or no, Ms. Tallarico, do you support ranked choice voting? Yes or no?
No.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Hiller?
No.
Thank you. 20 words or less. Do you think the 128% water coverage is workable or bogus when it comes to development? Ms. Tallarico?
I definitely do not think it's bogus.
Perfect. Thank you. That's 20 words.
Was that 20 words?
I definitely don't think. No, it's like 6. Go ahead. Go ahead. You got 10
Okay.
more. 14.
I believe, again, that Nancy Henjum's request for a task force and study is very needed for this issue.
Okay. I mean, that's about 30 words. Go ahead,
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Hiller.
you.
Yes, ma'am. 30 words or less.
Okay.
Bogus or workable?
As written, bogus, because it is not fairly allocated among the city.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Hiller.
Okay, for this question, we start with Mr. Hiller. You have 1 minute to respond. Do you feel police training in Colorado Springs is adequate?
Thank you for that. I would say no, and very simply because if anyone has any complaints, and whether that's speed of response, style of response, or even willingness to response, then something is lacking. And for any of us who live here, I think we're well aware that these things are lacking. I don't think there's a problem with our officers. There's a lack of focus and a lack of funding for training and things like that. So I don't think it's adequate. I think our police need more resources, more training, and more help from us, certainly. Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Tallarico?
I agree. I don't think that is adequate at all. I think that we, again, send our men and women into harm's way, not always, many times though, with little training. I think that there is definitely a desire for them to be trained better. I don't blame anybody in the city for purposefully putting out officers who are not trained, but I think that we could do a lot better as a city to increase the level of training and the level of different courses that those officers need to go through and get checked off before they're allowed to go out into the field.
Thank you.
All right. 30 seconds. We'll try to get a few last minute questions in on this one. Ms. Tallarico, you're first. Under the strong mayor form of government, some believe this has rendered city council unnecessary as a legislative body. Do you see any need to fix this? 30 seconds.
I am not ill-minded enough to believe that I will be able to fix it in my lifetime. I don't like that there are people who believe that, and I am so sorry, I can't remember exactly what you called it. Do you mind repeating just the middle of that question?
Sure. Some believe that this has rendered city council superfluous is what they actually put, but I had to look that up, and for unnecessary as a legislative body.
And I
So that's just
that really offends me. It offends me for several reasons. I don't think it's superfluous. I think that with the strong mayor, it is our job to be the legislative body governing. And if you read the city charter and you read the description of our city council, you would understand that it is necessary that there be both.
Thank you, ma'am. 30 seconds. Mr. Hiller, same question.
Right. I think a part of the beauty of our system is the checks and balances are very important. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So I suggest that the city council needs to work a little bit to claw some of that power back. The city council also can't be all powerful because you end up in the same position. I support a balance of power between judicial, legislative, and executive branches. I do think that the mayor has gotten a little too strong, and it's probably the obligation of the city council to claw that back a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hiller.
All right.
Question.
Last question. Mr. Hiller, starting with you. You have 1 minute to respond to this. Do you believe that we should continue to promote tourism? And if not, how would small businesses view your decision to cut spending for, as an example, visitors? COS. Visit Colorado. Visit Colorado. Okay. They wrote it funny.
Visit COS.
Okay.
Sure. So Visit COS is funded, my understanding is nearly 100% by the LART tax, the lodging and rental car tax. And most of the Visit COS is based on marketing. I have a hard time believing that without marketing, people wouldn't realize that Colorado Springs is a good place to visit. I have a hard time believing that people come here because of the marketing of Visit COS. So while I don't support cutting Visit COS, I do believe that any increases to the LART tax should probably not go to marketing or tourism events. Thank you.
Thank you.
I probably have a polar opposite view to this. I wholeheartedly support Visit COS and I wholeheartedly support LART to the point where I do believe that it is time for us to consider a higher LART level. We are one of the smallest, we're one of the states that pays the least in the entire country for LART. Having said that, I agree we're a beautiful city. Do we need to be pandering for people to come here? Maybe, maybe not. As a small business owner, I would be lying to you, Scott and Room, if I didn't say that it is absolutely imperative that we have visitors that come to this city who decide that they want to live and work here and make this their homes. So I am very supportive of Visit COS and I'm proud of what they have accomplished.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I lied. I think this, we have 7:15 according to our agenda was supposed to be the last question. So there was one card that I sent out that I was wanting some clarification on, but I do remember most of it. Yes or no in the last two questions for me. Very simple. Would you, if you were on council, would you have voted for the amphitheater? Yes or no, Ms. Tallarico?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Hiller?
No.
2424 Garden of the Gods, that up the complex?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Hiller?
No.
Perfect. Those are my last two questions. You don't have any others, right? Okay. Awesome. So we are going to now get to your candidate closings. You will each get 1 minute. We started with Mr. Hiller at the beginning. Ms. Tallarico, you will be first with your candidate closing for 1 minute, please. Thank you.
I would very much like to thank the League of Women Voters, everyone that's been here this evening, and for the opportunity for all of these forums to share our opinions. I believe that I am a very strong candidate, given that I have run a business and understand how to monitor and deal with the ins and outs of a budget on a daily basis. I would be lying if I didn't say that there were many years that it was a struggle to have our business, but I am very confident that I would be a fair-minded individual who would listen to learn and weigh the facts accordingly. I do not have an agenda to be a rubber stamped bought person by anybody or anything. I want the best for this city. This is too difficult a time, and I would ask for your support and your vote.
Thank you, Ms. Tallarico. Mr. Hiller.
Great. And thank you very much again to the League of Women Voters for putting this on. I believe that most of us have the same concerns about our city. Now, we're all worried about the same stuff. How do we make sure that our loved ones are safe in case of wildfire? How do we care for our homeless neighbors while maintaining our safe and sanitary society that we all expect? How do we balance the need to accommodate and plan for the inevitable growth that we all know is coming while keeping unbridled and irresponsible growth in check? I'm asking for your vote because I will give the current citizens' concerns the priorities that it deserves when making decisions about land use. I will also use an evidence-based approach to making critical decisions about our public resources and safety. I believe that the perspective that I would offer as a member of the council is unique and necessary as we plan for the future. Keeping Colorado Springs magnificent into the future will require input from all of us. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Can we get a round of applause for both of our candidates, please? Very good. Thank you so much for all of you two attending. Thank you so much to my other moderator, Miss Jackie. Again, we're both voters of District 3, so hopefully all of you are District 3 as well. Thank you to our co-sponsors. And again, thank you for taking the time tonight. I know this is somewhat dry material, but we do appreciate you being an active and engaged voter and participating in the process. We have another mayoral forum this Saturday. It is specifically on water, transportation, and the environment at the Hillside Community Center from 1 to 3. So we hope you can join us there. Community Conversation. This is a monthly event that we do. We try to do it at least once or twice a quarter. That is next Saturday, March 25th. Our conversation this month is on domestic violence. For those of you that don't know, it's one of the biggest issues that we have as women. Approximately 97% that die from a gun are actually women with regards to domestic violence incidents. So we do hope you will join us. We actually have police, a lot of advocates, several domestic violence survivors on that panel. So it should be a great discussion. And just coming out of that, like we do even this forum, is we just want to do better. We want you to be a better educated voter. So we, again, appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you to Dave in the back. Thank you again to our candidates. Please stay for a group picture. We'll take a picture with you if you wouldn't mind. And again, to all of you, we appreciate you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you, YouTube, as well.
I thought it was riveting. I said she called her information dry.
This is 6035 Media.